So I did a video asking the question of why the Jewish community is not more outspoken about the Second Amendment and why they haven't spoken. I haven't really seen a whole bunch of Jewish people for Michael Bloomberg, but I also haven't seen a lot of Jewish people speak out against Michael Bloomberg when his whole agenda is to disarm the American people. And as of the last couple of months, there's been attacks on Jewish people both in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh. And in New Jersey right now, you can go on Google and you can, or just any, Google search will pull it up. There was a piece that was written that talked about how there's an increase in the number of members of the Jewish community who are applying for permits. Now, in New Jersey, you still can't carry a firearm, but what you can do is you can have a firearm on the premises, right? But even Bloomberg would take that away. And I put out a video. Granted, there were probably, I tend to be a lot harsher when I speak on a lot of issues because I keep it real. But anyway, that video got flagged by YouTube as hate speech. And I always knew that when money got involved on YouTube, that free speech was going to go out the door. Everybody thought it was great because everybody got their channels monetized. But now, YouTube is in the business of making money. It's not about, it being what a lot of people thought it was, which was essentially like a public utility where, there's this free exchange of ideas and, things can be challenged and questioned. That's not what it is. I've noticed a number of other YouTubers that anytime they want to talk about, race or religion or, anything that has to do with, interest groups. And you all know that YouTube, has the whole closed caption thing. So every word that you say is being monitored. Every comment that you write is being monitored. And all of that is going through YouTube's algorithms. We're now even discussing, race, racism, white supremacy, anti-Semitism, right? Even me saying that combination of words will trigger, the YouTube gods, and I'll probably get a notification on this video saying that it's hate speech. Like this is what YouTube has become. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. I'm used to YouTube's false flagging and all that stuff, and it is what it is. That's not anything new for me. But I was thinking the other day, I was watching the news and they had these shootings. One guy went and shot two police officers in New York. He shot a police officer that was in the truck, and then he shot a police officer in the police station. Now, I don't know what was going on with this guy. He had a long rap sheet. Seemed like he had a death wish, but then he threw the gun on the ground. Maybe he just wanted to go back to prison because, the way the justice system is, if you get caught up with a felony, you're basically done. You're invisible to society. This whole idea that you go to jail, you serve your time, you come out, and then you can be gainfully employed and work a job. It's a fallacy. Like, you might as well, if you catch a felony in America, you might as well leave the country and go somewhere else and try to start anew, because you won't be able to in America. Now, again, I don't know why this guy went off the deep end and went in the police station and tried to shoot it up or whatever. I don't know. He's up there pleaded not guilty. He might have mental ailments. Who knows? I don't know what the issue is. And I've talked about prison reform before. And how that needs to be corrected. How people should be reincorporated in society, and that's a whole different conversation. But what was I going to say? There was something I was going to say about the whole thing. So when that happened, I went to a couple of YouTube videos and a couple of posts, and The white people were going crazy in the comment section. I mean, they were just going absolute, just crazy in the comment section. And as I've stated before, um, reading white people's comments leaves me feeling some type of way, especially about the Second Amendment community. It's the one thing that what's so funny about white people is they try to act like they don't understand what it's like to be in a minority. I'm like, yeah, you know what it's like being a minority. If you're a gun-owning American, you are a minority. And you see the type of stuff that the government does with the Second Amendment. Like, look at Virginia right now. What are they doing? They're passing gun bills in the cloak of darkness, right? They don't care what you have to say, right? That's what they used to do to black people with the Jim Crow laws. How we think black people were in the state house as they were passing Jim Crow laws? No, they made sure that black people weren't there. They made sure that black people's rights were denied. That's what they did. And what gets me is you get white people that they don't see that that's what's happening to them with the Second Amendment. I don't know. I feel like there's a certain sickening pathology that goes on with white folks where there's a complete disconnect, where they can see, like and it's crazy because like some of them they'll try to use or leverage, the black experience to talk about how their civil rights are being violated. But these aren't the people that were speaking up when black people's civil rights were actively being violated. I didn't see too many people in the gun community that were speaking up about Philando Castile, getting shot by the police officer. Any interaction that black people have with police officers, white people will co-sign the police officers hands down. Hands down. And I'm talking at the collective level. Screw the exceptions. I know there's a lot of white people out here that they have a problem with law enforcement, but again, as I've said numerous times, white people look at law enforcement like law enforcement is the enforcement arm of the system of white supremacy. As long as they keep the blacks in check, it's cool. It's cool. They're all for it. I find it funny you have all these, white gun owners that went down to Virginia. They got guns on their back and everything, talking about, even Biden's quoting it, the tree of liberty will be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants, right? And he's mocking, the gun community, saying that we have F-15s and Tomahawk missiles and stuff like that. And I'm like, first off, it's just ridiculous because the left keeps ignoring the fact that most of the military are people who are not only conservative, but they're white rural Americans. And yes, I know the oath that the military takes, right? To basically, fight against enemies, both foreign and domestic. Foreign and domestic. But I'm saying I'm just not so confident that it's going to play out that way. I find it funny how, the military would be held to the oath of, foreign, must fight enemies, both foreign and domestic. They're held to that oath because that oath actually means something. But then when it comes to the Second Amendment doesn't mean anything. It's archaic. It needs to be tossed. It needs to be thrown out. If you want to toss the Second Amendment, ratify the Constitution. Plain and simple. But see, they know that they can't go that route, so they're going the route of psychological warfare with the way that they, promote stuff in the media and the way that, all of the social media, which is now mainstream media. Mainstream media is no longer the mainstream. Mainstream media is off on the side. They've lost people trusting mainstream media. So people go to social media. But who controls all the social media? The people on the left. All the people living in Silicon Valley is all the liberals. All these places their headquarters are in blue states. They're not in conservative red states. You know what I mean? So, sorry, interruption. It's just real irritating. I mean the nastiness and the vitriol that I'm seeing, in the comment sections with this guy that shot the cop, and then they started bringing up, Black Lives Matter and Antifa and even the New York Police Department, which is just trash. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what I don't get. This is what was really getting me, because now it's really hitting me now, and I'm talking about Virginia. This is what gets me, right? So most of the white people that are about the Second Amendment, they're pro police officer, they're pro cops and everything, right? But yet, every time a gun owner goes into the state of New York, right, and they're going through JFK Airport, LaGuardia, whatever, they're going through the airport, right? You've seen all the cases where, they slam these people who come into New York. They're legal in their state. It's all supposed to be, the United States of America. They're legal in their state. The minute they go into New York, even when they check their guns, because that's how they're getting caught. They're thinking, I'm good. I'm checking my firearm. And then the TSA pulls them to the side and they get charged and they get arrested. And I'm saying these New York cops that I see white people, and this is how you know that white supremacy trumps all. This is how you know that white supremacy is the most powerful religion that exists in the world, and how, the tenets of what white people say when they want to, talk about the Second Amendment and liberty and freedom and America and everything, it's bullshit. And this is why you see a lot of black people that just roll their eyes. You know what I mean? They're like, white people are full of shit. And even when I go out there and I try to get black people to support the Second Amendment, they're like, first off, I'm not supporting that because I don't support white people. And then on top of that, supporting, white folks, even if they believe in the tenets, they're like, well, those laws don't apply to us. Those freedoms don't apply to us. The Second Amendment doesn't apply to us. You know what I mean? The way that it's even going to be enforced by law enforcement doesn't apply to us. And again, you never see white people back us up on that shit. You know what I'm saying? It's rare that we get backed up on that. These cops in New York, these same cops that are up there talking about it's de Blasio's fault and talking about how it's Black Lives Matter's fault and whatnot. These same cops are the same cops that deny American citizens, white folks, good white folks, their Second Amendment rights. So again, what business do you have supporting these New York police officers when you know that these New York police officers are the main ones that are out there enforcing unconstitutional laws? Again, down in Virginia, you guys are riled up, ready to take on the law enforcement because dare those Virginian cops support unconstitutional laws that Northam is trying to pass. But then when we go all the way up to New York and you have those cops get shot, y'all immediately, our police officers. Now all of a sudden you best friends with these white police officers in New York. I'm like, really? You see the hypocrisy? You see the double standard? I mean, it's blatant as day. It's so blatant, it's disgusting. And yet when it comes to the white gun community, you know what I'm saying? They don't speak up on it. You know what I mean? And like I've always said, there's this balancing act, this fake ass balancing act between police officers and Second Amendment community, right? Where again, it's we support the Second Amendment and we support law enforcement officers. As long as law enforcement officers leave us alone, they can check the niggas all day, right? Because that's where most of the crime is coming from. Yeah, so keep the blacks in check. Keep them in check. But then when it comes to, us as law-abiding gun owners, cops are your best friend until some shit pops off and the Second Amendment gets violated. And then people are sitting there talking about, they're getting ready to go out there and have a civil war, with the government, right? As I've said before, law enforcement, your local police would be the spear tip of any tyranny if tyranny were to happen. If martial law was instituted, okay, your local law enforcement would be the first ones, that would implement martial law until the military got there. They would be working in cahoots with the military. You know what I mean? Like it's like there's so many angles to look at this from, and it's just like nobody looks at it from the multiple angles of the fact that there are no real true alliances. It's very much fragile alliances. But that alliance, as a black gun owner in America, that alliance between white gun owners and police officers against the black person, we see how that shit's going to play out. That's why you don't see a whole bunch of black gun owners that go out there and as much as they believe in the Second Amendment as well, they're not about to go out there and stand shoulder to shoulder with the Oath Keepers and, shoulder to shoulder with the, with the 3%ers and everything else like that, even though I think that they should. Even though I think that the Oath Keepers and the Second Amendment people and the three percenters and everything else should go out of their way to include black people in their marches and in their events and put them up to the front, just for the optics against the left, who are obviously going to go out there and say that, oh well, all those people are racist. They're all neo-Nazis, right? That's what they said. That's what Northam tried to do. They're all Nazis. This is Charlottesville 2.0. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. You know what I mean? But sometimes I feel like, why am I even speaking on this shit? Why am I out there even trying to defend the white community, Second Amendment people? Because they sure as shit don't defend us when it comes to, the black community. And again, this long history of racial tensions between the black community and police officers. 93% of police officers are Caucasian. Only 3% are black. White people view cops as, their bodyguards, their security force, their people. And the crazy thing is again, like I said, yeah, those cops are pro-white in New York. Yeah, until you walk into New York with your concealed carry gun, and you're from Virginia or Florida or Tennessee or Memphis. Now all of a sudden you're dumped in the same category that the blacks are dumped into. Now all of a sudden you're the target of stop and frisk or whatever else. You know what I'm saying? In other words, yeah, they're on your team until you go into New York and violate, their laws that you argue all the time is unconstitutional. So yet again, you can see it plain as day. You know what I'm saying? It's you all are, pro cop until the cops come for your rights or you're directly affected by what they're doing. Just completely ignoring that New York is the state that is the absolute worst when it comes to the Second Amendment, between New York and California. The absolute worst. Assault weapons ban, magazine restrictions. You can't conceal carry. They had that stupid ordinance in New York with the premises permit that is now sitting before the Supreme Court. Right? And again, these New York cops, they have no issue. It's not like the cops are cool. It's not like the cops are like, hey, brother, we support the Second Amendment. I'm just going to act like I didn't see anything. No, those New York cops that are running around trying to get your support, oh, look, and we've been attacked. And, oh, it's because of Black Lives Matter and de Blasio. Those are the same assholes that will have you jammed up and try to put you in prison for 10 years off of you exercising a right that in any other state would be perfectly legal. But yet you don't see them like that until it happens. They're your best friends because, hey, they're white and I'm white and we're on the same team. And then you wonder why black people still point out that there's racism. It's not about, the idea that, it's all about politics and ideology, and as though you can take a room full of people and they can be of all different races and backgrounds and religions and creeds and everything else. And that, everybody's just going to side with who, shares the same, political ideologies as they do. That's not what it works. Race comes first and then everything else comes second. That's just the reality of the situation. And white people try to paint the picture like, oh, it's not like that. We support you. No, you only support the black people that espouse the ideologies, that you espouse when it comes to, the optics of it. But do you generally, support, the principles of the Second Amendment when it comes to black people? No, y'all don't. Or any other right? No, y'all don't. As soon as black people cross whatever line it is, y'all are going to side with the white police officer. It's hilarious as a black person to sit there and watch, this simultaneous, love and appreciation and devotion and support of our boys in blue and the thin blue line and all that bullshit. And then turn right around, you get down to Virginia and you start talking about them violating people's constitutional rights and whether they're going to confiscate guns and everything. And y'all ready to blow these police officers away. You ready to blow them away. Blow them away just the same way as you're claiming that it's Black Lives Matter, or some other anti white black movement or whatever that is the reason why this cop got shot. There have been more police officers shot by white extremists than there have been black people who've gone out here and shot police officers. You know what I'm saying? You had that guy in Pennsylvania that was hiding in the barn. You had that guy in Idaho, who ambushed the police officers. And even cops, it's like cops are seemingly more scared to be ambushed by black people than they are to be ambushed by white people, when white people are the ones that ambush cops more than black people. It's just the way that the media plays it. It's big news if a black person does it. But I just find it just so hypocritical. It's like, in other words, it's like people don't really mean what they say. I'm not for the idea of anybody going out here and harming police officers or any of that stuff. That, like, all that's going to do is turn people, against you or your movement and all that other stuff. But it's just so hypocritical the way that you got James Yeager up there talking about, if they take one more step, I'm gonna start killing people and all that other stuff. And again, where was the Blue Lives Matter people when James Yeager was talking that? Y'all was packing your bags just like he said. Y'all was getting ready to go out there and do something just like he said. He was inciting violence, and y'all were in full support. Because, oh my God, the government is coming to take our guns. You know what I'm saying? And again, the vast majority of government, the enforcement arm of government, is overwhelmingly white males. You want to talk about what an American Civil War would look like? It ain't going to be white on black. It's going to be majority white on white. That's what it's going to be. White on white violence. But, it's like regardless of whatever the principles of American society are, it's always you niggas stay in your fucking lane. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. You niggas stay in your lane. It's the tree of liberty needs to be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants until some black people get on there. It's from my cold dead hands until some black people get on there. It's praise the Lord, pass the ammunition until some black people get on there. Right? Give me liberty or give me death until some black people get on there. Like I said before, I had a video I did. That was another video that YouTube tried to flag, where I asked a question. I said, when is it okay for black people to fight against tyranny? Because white people talk a whole bunch of shit like they get ready to fight tyranny, at every corner. Like black people can't identify when somebody does some foul shit to them. One of the things that I hate about this guy going to New York and, doing the whole shooting the cops and everything else like that is it's like, it doesn't seem like it's in response to any sort of direct incident. Like we know when it came to Micah Johnson down there in Dallas, that was in direct response to Philando Castile, being cut down the way that he was cut down. And same with the Baton Rouge shooter. What people ignore is both of those men were veterans. They served in the military. It seems like white media just wanted to ignore that. They wanted to ignore the fact that these men served their country as black men, a group of people who have not been, recognized as even full-on citizens. They've been treated as second-class citizens. They go off, they fight their war, they serve their country, and they come back and they got to sit there and watch Philando Castile bleed out in a car. Like that wouldn't leave any reasonable person feeling some type of way. It's just frustrating. It's frustrating to see, just the comments, just the way that they're just, it was de Blasio, it was Black Lives Matter, and the fucking NYPD cops is up there talking this bullshit. And again, here comes the white conservatives jumping in, white knighting for these New York cops. I'm like, I thought you were down there in Virginia dealing with tyrants. The Virginia government and the law enforcement in Virginia is literally trying to transform themselves into the police officers in the government of New York. And you all are ready to take on the government, armed conflict with the officials in Virginia But yet you're going to sit there and you're going to co-sign the government and the police officers in New York who are already there. See, that lets me know right off top that it's all about whiteness. It's all about whiteness. It's not about the principles of what's actually transpiring and what's taking place. You know what I'm saying? You should have for when it comes to the Second Amendment community and it comes to them cops in New York, you should have the Second Amendment people turning their backs on New York police officers the same way New York police officers turn their backs on de Blasio. It should be the same. We say, hey, we don't really support you all like that because you all don't support the Second Amendment. Hell, that might be a nice way to try to get New York to turn their gun laws around because the New York can't get the support of New York can't get the support of the people. You know, the police officers of New York can't get the support of the people. You know, I mean, look at and shout out to Mr. Barrett. You look at Barrett. Barrett in New York said, oh, you can't have a 50 cal. And what did Barrett do? Barrett said, okay, well, I'm not selling 50 caliber rifles to New York. I'm not selling my M107s or my, what is it, M82 A1s or something like that. I'm not selling them to the city of New York or the state of New York. If the citizens can't have it, you can't have it either. That's a bold statement. That's a bold move. You know what I'm saying? He said, I don't care if people want to accuse him or accuse, like, let me talk like I'm him, accuse me of not supporting law enforcement. He took a stand. You know what I'm saying? He's standing on principle. He's like, no. If the people can't have this, then you can't have it either. But yet when it comes to your average run-of-the-mill regular American white citizen, they don't approach cops like that. They don't look at police departments like that. Like, hey, you're violating our fellow, African American, citizens who served with us in every American conflict this nation has ever. No, they don't look at it like that. They look at it like, keep the niggas in check. We support you, law enforcement officers. Yeah, until those law enforcement officers got some white guy, pinned on the ground with a tactical knee to the back of his neck, talking about, we're arresting you for unlawful possession of a firearm or whatever other stupid ass laws that they have in New York that they're arresting people underneath in JFK. Notice it hasn't been other than actually I think Juelz Santana, the rapper, he got caught up. He left a gun in his bag and forgot he brought it to the airport, and then when he went to go through the metal detectors, it showed up in the metal detector, and so he got scared and ran off and then later gave himself in. But I'm saying on average, it's overwhelmingly white men who are somehow foolish enough to think that all they got to do is check their firearms in at the TSA in New York, and New York just sees it as an opportunity to terrify and terrorize, the pro Second Amendment community into ever thinking to come in. Like, in other words, there's no response. There's no real legal response. All they do is bury the person with legal fees. They're arrested, they're charged, they lose their job, then they got to lawyer up. God knows how much that costs. You know what I'm saying? So the city of New York knows that it can literally legally just strangle the person with litigation. And your average run-of-the-mill white person that's living paycheck to paycheck, they're not going to go up there just to test the waters. They're not going to go up there and let me go up here in New York and follow all the TSA rules and whatnot. You ain't going to see what's his name, Steven Crowder do that. He wants to sit there and have his little tables and his kiosk and everything and test it out, his theories and everything. You're never going to see him go and take his gun and to New York and test out, the TSA and follow all their rules and regulations and whatnot, and he'll still get slammed. He's not going to risk all that. Although that would be very interesting because I highly doubt that the city of New York would actually want that high profile of a case to actually deal with. That it makes them look bad. It's just like they freaked out with this whole, New York ordinance situation. It makes them look bad. They're like, so now I think I saw an article somewhere where now, they're trying to give people something else like disorderly conduct or something, but that's only in the end after the whole process takes place and you've been arrested and you've lost your job and you're being charged and everything else, and then they finally take you to court and then they give you a slap on the wrist. I think that's what's been happening as of late because they really don't want any more cases to go up to the Supreme Court. But I mean, that's just my frustration. My frustration with the gun community. I mean, the comments were just nasty. These guys walking in the police. This guy walking in the police station and just shooting at the police officers and everything. And then the whole comment. Oh, it's got to be racial. Oh, it's because of Black Lives Matter. I'm like, really? It's because of Black Lives Matter. So I guess when you have these white men who try to ambush police officers, that's because of Black Lives Matter too. Really? Is that what it is? Because Black Lives Matter? That's why you get these sovereign citizens and 3%ers and these other militia groups, who are always constantly talking about war with the government. It's because of Black Lives Matter that they go out here, and you'll get a crazed one that breaks off and then actually tries to kick off a war with the government, right? Yeah, I mean, I noticed this ever since that whole Clive Bundy situation. When they went up there and they was, them FBI agents, they were shaking hands with the Bundys and everything. But they did take one of them out. That the old guy that, he pulled out a gun on him and they took his ass out. When he, I don't know what he did. He like drove through a barricade or some shit and then hit a snowbank and then got out the vehicle and then they were trying to arrest him and he pulled out his 1911 or something and they shot his ass dead. A lot of people forget that. I don't forget that. There's a wealth of information on YouTube. So, the videos are there. They're up there. But y'all love law enforcement and police and government agencies and everything until it's Ruby Ridge, until it's Waco, Texas. And I'm not even trying to tie, what this guy did in New York and went in the police station. Again, I think something's mentally wrong with him. And like I said, I don't like how even some black people who are, pro-militant, they'll try to act like, it's like ISIS where they try to like just claim everything. It'll be some random lone wolf and they'll somehow sit there and they'll still try to claim, it was us. And it's like, no, it wasn't. This dude was just off his rocker. What I mean? He probably did have some beefs with police officer because he had a long criminal history, a long record. Again, like, you got that on your record. You can't even live in America. You can't live. You can't get a job. You can't support a family. Again, personally, I think that needs to change. Nonviolent felons should not have to, have it to where when they go to apply for a job and turn their lives around and everything else like that, that they just have this eyesore permanently attached to their record to where they can't even get a job. I don't believe in that. Some of you all sit there, and I see you in the comment sections. They need to lock them up and throw away the key, and the Democrats, they're out here giving people, letting people go and giving people, what's the word that they give? Putting them on probation and all this other shit. They need to keep them under the jail. I'm like, really? Keep them under the jail for nonviolent felonies, right? Is that what justice is? You know what I mean? So you sell a bit of some marijuana at 19 and you're saying that they should be in jail for the rest of their lives? Really? Is that what you're saying? It's just because they're black. Oh, I get it. The whole system is broken. You know what I'm saying? Many of these guys, if they could clean up their lives, they would clean up their lives. But when you got, drug possession or you got, whatever other, felony that's on there, you're done. You're invisible to the system. Even if you wanted to go to school and, get, freaking Stafford loans, federal loans to go to school, you can't get them because you're a convicted felon. I mean, think about how dumb that is. How many white people are up there trying to argue, to turn that around, to change that law? We think that people who are convicted of felons should be able to, get federal loans to go to school if they're trying to turn their life around. That only makes sense. Then we wonder why we have such high recidivism in America. When you get these people that go out there and they commit crimes, and then America won't even allow them to turn their lives back around. You can't you can't vote. You can't get federal loans to go to school, right? You can't get a decent job. People have to lie on their resumes, and then they go and they get the background check. We got to do a background check. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got people talking about background checks to buy firearms. Really? You need a background check to get a job? Really? You know what I'm saying? And again, we're talking non-violent felonies. I'm not talking about, somebody who got a 25-year sentence for killing killing their wife or something like that. Even though, even still, it's like, okay, well, you might as well just keep them in jail. I don't even understand why giving like people who you think are a danger to society, why you would even let them out. I don't understand that. I mean, the punishment doesn't fit the crime. A felony, and you can find plenty of articles that talk about this. A felony is a lifelong punishment, and I don't think it should be that way. You went to jail, you served your time, you learned your lesson, you're trying to get back on your feet and basically start where you left off. I think society should allow people to do that. If you don't allow people to do that, and especially what happens to young black men, you know what I mean, then you're creating the very problem that you're complaining about. You're creating more and more criminals. You're creating more and more, of these situations that end up spilling out of the black community and spilling on the white people. You're creating recidivism. And then again, when we look at how the whole system works, you have, all these politicians and all these big banks and all these people that actually have investments in the prison industrial complex to keep people locked up and keep them, in prison, and they're making money off of it. So they're incentivized to just create these arbitrary bullshit laws to give people longer, sentences and create a system that just keeps, people who got caught up in the system in the system. That's fucked up. I don't care how you want to break it down. It's fucked up. People should be able to, get on with their lives and be able to support their families, that, many of them inevitably have. People seem to forget that part. Many of these guys that get locked up and they got felons, they have kids. They have kids. And those kids are out there struggling and everything else, which is only going to lead them 9 times out of 10, or maybe not 9 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10 down the same path as their fathers, because they have no support system, because all they got to rely on is their single mom. And if their single mom is fucked up, they're just done. And you get these white men that always, in the comment section, just talking like they're just levitating above everybody else, including other whites, who grew up in poor areas and go through the same shit. It's just frustrating. And again, nobody's saying what I'm saying. Nobody is saying what I'm saying. Even if they feel it, they're not saying it. They're not calling it out. So here I am calling it out and making the video, so that's all I got to say about it. That's my video. New Jersey self-defense, New Jersey gun laws out.